is being introduced at the lowest rate for any tax in Ghana, comparatively at 1.75%, less than 2%. In other countries, digital taxes are being introduced at the rate of up to 10%, and they are paying. That's the UK, and we go there and seek loans from them to finance our development, when we are not paying the requisite taxes that we should. In 2020, the Communication Service Tax Amendment Act was passed to reduce the rate from 9% to 5% from the 15th of September 2020. When the CST was introduced, it faced similar opposition as we are seeing currently. And the current speaker dubbed it as talk tax, as the NDC and the industry, led by the GSMA data, claimed it would damage the growth of the telecommunications industry as consumers would change their mobile communication habits. This does not happen. They were unfounded fears. Incidentally, at the time, I was the spokesperson for the mobile telecommunications network operators. And I remember vehemently opposing the communication service tax based on data from the GSMA, which is an industry association, the GSM Association internationally. They had produced data to the effect that introduction of any such tax would kill the industry, stifle its growth. And so based on that analysis, we all went out and opposed the introduction of that tax. Several years on, we realized that those dangers were unfounded. It never happened. The industry has grown exponentially since 2008, and all of us find telecommunications and digital infrastructure applications and services as indispensable to everything that we seek to do. The same speculations and complaints are being made about the e-levy, that consumers will stop using electronic transactions because of the imposition of this levy. I dare say that based on our experience with the communication service tax and lessons from other African countries, we're confident that the e-levy will not bring about any negative changes in consumer behavior, as electronic transactions afford us the convenience, the safety, the security that we currently enjoy. Despite the NDC's opposition to the communication service tax, they never repealed it when they were in power. They didn't even reduce the rate of the levy. They also complained about and rejected the National Health Insurance Scheme when it was introduced in Parliament and actually walked out. They complained about the capitation grant and sought to rubbish it. They had issues with free SHS and even asked for a boycott of the national ID and ridiculed our oil discovery as well, claiming that it was adringo and not crude oil. They always oppose every initiative that will ultimately benefit the Ghanaian people. But our collective experience shows, and they themselves admit, that despite their initial opposition to many of these interventions, they've proven to be worth their weight in gold. I dare say, and I appeal to them, cooperate with government and work with us to pass this levy as well, because ultimately, the results that we got from the communication service tax, which clearly did not destroy the industry, will also be evident post-implementation of this levy, as we are all working collectively to enhance access to and use of digital platforms, working with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that digital financial services becomes the norm rather than the exception, as we strive to create a cash-light society and reduce our reliance on cash for our transactions. This year, working with the ministry and the developers of the Ghana.gov platform, we intend to move applications and payment for all government goods and services onto the Ghana.gov platform. If any of you has applied for a passport recently, you would vouch for the fact that it's made it easy, simple, corruption-free, harassment-free. The Goro boys are screaming because they're being deprived of their livelihood, because now you don't need to know anybody to acquire a passport. Just go onto the Ghana.gov platform, submit your application, pay for it, and you'll be sent notification of when to come and collect your passport. And when you go, your passport is ready for collection. You don't have to pay a bribe to anyone. We're going to do the same for all government goods and services using that platform to ease government to citizen interactions and make it easier for us to conduct business in this country. It is not a story I'm telling you. It is a fact which is happening. If you apply to register a company now, you would see that, and I used this example yesterday, the minute you register your company, notification is sent to your district assembly where that business is located. They also send you notification instantly about the amount of business operating license that you have to pay. You pay for it electronically. You get a receipt electronically. You're ready and you're set to commence business without having to pay bribe, join any queue, or any harassment. That's the kind of digital infrastructure digital operators that we're working to grow your business, not to. A GSMA report also showed that when the levy, a similar levy was passed in Uganda, transaction values reduced slightly upon the introduction of this levy, but they picked up almost immediately, and after 4 months we're back at the levels before the introduction of the tax, and currently have far outstripped those levels. I'm confident that it won't take even 4 months for the industry in Ghana here to absorb this levy and grow even more, as was the case with the communication service tax. We're unique, we're blessed, we're a nation after the heart, God's own heart. And so we've learned lessons from the experiences of other countries that have introduced digital taxes in this continent. And that is why the Minister for Finance has put a cap, a safety cap, whereby transactions up to 100 cedis are exempted from the levy to ensure that those who send these sums are not severely impacted. And 40% of all Momo transactions fall in this category. So almost half of all the transactions are exempted. Just a few statistics about how much we spent on e-commerce in by January 2021. We spent 234 million on travel, mobility and accommodation. This was even down by 34% due to COVID restrictions on travel. We spent over 144 million on fashion and beauty on electronic platforms. This is in Ghana here. All these transactions happened electronically and went largely untaxed. Business has moved from physical locations online, outside the reach of the GRA, and depriving government of much needed revenue. We need to reverse that, and the e-levy will do that. It will enable government to build a proper digital infrastructure and create a digital marketplace which will connect buyers and sellers and help people access value-added services such as e-health, e-agric, e-education, etc. It will provide funding for cybersecurity to protect us from cyber fraudsters and criminals as we engage more on digital platforms. We all want connectivity, and a robust digital infrastructure will drive down the cost of using telecommunication services and improve access to digital services. We're rolling out the rural telephony project. It will also give all of us a chance to contribute to our own development and our economy, our economic and infrastructural development. It will reduce corruption, theft, and other forms of embezzlement because it is inherently traceable and people can't hide and commit fraud or crimes behind it. If you use a credit or a debit card, you pay between 2 to 4% transaction fees, and so the levy is on the lower end of total cost. All bank transfers also attract bank charges. So it is not true that this is going to affect or be double taxation or tax our capital as well. But I leave that for the finance minister to talk more about. The roads minister is here. We'll get funding for road construction and maintenance and more reliable payments for existing contracts to reduce the overall burden on government. Such infrastructural development will also create more jobs for the youth and cut down on youth unemployment, as Youth Start initiative would also do. More financial inclusion and digital empowerment for the less privileged in our society would also ensue. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are there for government to achieve, including reducing inequality, gender equality, education, clean water, and sanitation. We need to find a way of increasing domestic revenue mobilization, which is key to achieving these goals. If the funds are not generated internally, we would either have to go and beg for aid, borrow. We can't steal. So we would either have to beg or borrow. And we cannot continue to borrow to finance or beg to finance our development. Government is seeking to meet its agenda of a Ghana beyond aid. And this requires all of us to support the e-levy and contribute our quota to national development. The world is changing, and we must depend more on our own internally generated funds for our development. He who pays the piper calls the tune. So long as we are dependent on donors, they will dictate the pace of our development. And so we need to rely less on donors to be truly independent. Our destiny really lies in our own hands. Someone, Nyamikaye, ne tofabo, muane se. Abai yen sheshe a ebema yen de abefo. Infidie ene ntahudie yashemu ekna. Ni nyina eye sikasam. Na se yampe yankasa yenya sika ewo yankasa yenhu entua for yempuntuo na ye nyina ye hwehwe na jesi yekobobosia ana yekosre na okosre ade a oni na okosre wono ho no ono na ekire wo se da ha yesei nti na yemfa ahudie a yenya as oman no a ankrankre amanone fo na wo se omo efso yasene na ye yempuntu nyuma no na ene na yemfa ahudie no na yedi ne sen efise yensa ehye wanum emri bi atwam yekọ IMF omo ka kire yense mayemma mabu yemfa mabu adwumamu ewo aban adwumakuom. There was a freeze on employment enti na yemma etifia yenya adwuma enye efise omo ma yensika no ena ehye yenkete se mayemfa yemma ewo adwumam yensusu de enim se yendaache impuntu agina entiti a yede bema yemma no ene nti e wose yemma won entiti e bema omotumi aye abefo nkitahudie no omo so de won ho ebeji mu bi ni nyina sika wo hwe yen sika sam se ni sitie na se yankasa yansomu kakra we aso ha we asora ni entwea ne kakra yempuntuo no ebeka akire emri bia ye de talk tax eba no eye afi 2008 no yeti hoye send ye yeti ni sesie say ye de talk tax ne ba ebem ye nyina ye jai kasa ewo telephone so ebegu adwuma no internet adwuma no enkoso ebio ewrade adom mampanin kufu aban etumi ede bae time aye de ba no na me ye adwuma ewo me ne kasamafo ema network telecoms service operators no enti ye ne aban esi ye ni bia e kan bia se ye de ba no ebe ha ye adwuma no na nimdia kakra omode ama ye free GSM association e kire se ebe ha ye adwuma no nanso abakosem ye nyina ye living witnesses ye di mu adanse ye se ye de talk tax ba ye no adwuma yi enwu etumpon menne obia adwumadie bia wo ye bia no wonni internet access wonni data wonni phone na adwumadie na wo ye no ne ye no eye din ema ye nyina kakra enti ne ye ti se ebegu adwuma no enye saa na esiye me wa rechemu se saa akuo ya ne mpanimfo bi nsoso asori kasetia Levy send ye see with talk tax to me wa rechemu se ye de Levy nsoso ba enwu adwuma bia emom aban kra enne ye nhihye ya ebe ma amanfo dodo na eyusu abefo kwan so adi nkitaho se ye dwadie se ye adesua se ye apomuden empo se ye kuayo ye hye ni nyina kina emu kina na yafa abefo kwan so na edi aye dwadie titru ye mpese ye de sika ebedi dwa ye pese obia use digital financial services yibi either mobile money ana credit card ana debit card ana QR code abefo hyehye ni aye ni bebre a ye pese ankrankra nyina eyusu abefo kwan so edidi wondwa enti ye nuanom wo musuro so mo adwuma begunu me ameda saa asuaye anu emehye mo bose enhyehye ya ye de agu akwan mu no afi kra na ebema adwuma no etumpon na akonkan na ya trem na ya bre yesusu sika kasha ye yusu no bebre no ye pese ye teso na ye fa abefo kwan so mo edidi yendwa ene ebo yembra enti nhyehyɛ na ye no betremu mom emmensei ebehye mu ekina baby omudi saa edwumakuo yi bi etuo yi bi ba ye no so ye hu ohawo kakra eba won ho no enti yen ye de aba yen hyehyɛ ni mu ya yen hyehyɛ ya ebeyi saa hawo no dodo na efri ho enti ma yen kuma entu se Levy ye de ba ebeba ba be ha yen de bi ye hwe sika ye di ye yusu ye enokra dollar nye cedi ewo abefo ntentan dwadi a ye di January afi etwamu 2021 ni mu a $234 million ena ye di ewo e-commerce abefo edwadi emu ewo ekwantuo kafa ene accommodation for I can't say high emu $234 million enumpo no na eswate oha enchichemu eduasa enan esign covid restrictions na eba eninti ti yate so 34% nimpo no ena na ye $234 million efa emanta reshe ni makeup mu ni sa niema na ye di mu dwaga na hankwa o $144 million on fashion and beauty alone enti si ye san hyehyɛ ya omo di sa adwa nyina ewo abefo mfidie isu omo ntwea eho eto bia nanso ye mra no e kire se udidwa ewo memu ha na wonya mfaso bi ewo ha was say utua ho eto emfa ho say we be store ana wo hye wo dan mu wudi and edi say adwa no abefo kwan so ti adwuma no move afri store dan mu akọ digital platform so abefo okay abefo ntentan enhyehyɛ eso ɛhɔ no GRA entumi enjeje ye eto na ɛwɔ sɛ ɔmogye no nti ase nipa kakra bi ɔhanchichemu enwotwe ɛpɛ ɛnetua toɔ ɛwɔ mɛmu ha a yɛdidi yɛmpuntudwuma enyina ɔmokomu ebu yɛnyinara yɛbetumi atua nkakra ɛde asomwasene si yɛsi yɛpɛ Ghana beyond 8 Ghana ogyina ne nanso afa ne ntoma pɛfra a ɔno ankasa abɔ ne brade a yɛsi waso aware a no ato preti sisi a yɛsi yɛn yɛde yɛn ho tinya afe ne yɛkɔ akɔne ne na mama no ne akɔsrɛ ansa ne yɛdidi anaya yɛka kwan anaya si school dan anaya si ayasabia ɛwɔ sɛ yankasa yɛtumi sane yɛn fotom na yɛn nyinaa ankorankora etua nkakra na yɛtoatoa ne nyinaa ɛka ne nyinaa bɔ ano na yɛtumi editua yɛn puntuo no ɛhoka yɛma benya adwuma ayɛ abɛɛfo nhyehyɛe no yɛbɛtrem ɛho bambɔ no yɛbenya sika ne bi yɛde ayɛ ka kwan yɛbenya bi ɛde ayɛ agenda 111 hospitals a yɛpɛsi yɛsie no yɛbenya bi ɛde ayɛ ti yɛbɛsrɛ Ghanafoɔ nyinaa ɛnkanka yɛn nuanom dɔm kumafoɔ ne sɛ ɔmo ɛmɛka yɛn ho na ehu na aba wɔ mu sɛ ɛyɛ adebɔne bi a ɛba ɛbɛha yɛn no ɔmo nyi saa hu no ɛmfiri yɛn mu na mmom yɛn nyinaa yɛmfa yɛn hoɔden ne yɛn ani akyiri na yɛnhwɛ sɛ sika na yɛgyegye toɔ na yɛgyegye no nea yɛaka sɛ yɛde bɛyɛ no mpanyam paa yɛde edi saa adwuma no yɛyɛ saa aban so bɛtena se sika bi enyu enko obiya bɔtɔm kɛtaasehye ne prɔyɛ ɛbɛbra ase efisɛ woyɛ adwuma abɛɛfo nhyehyɛ mu a ani ɛdam ɛda hɔ fan obiya ne tuam wodi sia enye yie yɛn nyinaa yɛ mmoa na yɛnya saa nhyehyɛ no na yɛ mmoa na yɛ mɛn ɛmfa ne ntoma pa mfra da mu nyinaa
Mantemun Semoni, you may find some Mokesier and the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization. I say, Wachre, Yabako Sam Kakra, Ewa Bra, Infidie ne Abefum, Fidie Kwanso, a Hotofi, I say, Mampeni Kufua Breso, and Komo Kosos Abrani, say, Bemani na Kuregu. Uncle Sisa, Wachre Levy, Sika Ejo, near Juma, Yepese Edisa, Sikane, Wasanso Wachre, a Hukakre woman, Nebi Mo say, sempo no ye kɔgyegye saa toɔ no ɛwɔ abɛɛfo ntintaa kwan so a ɛbɛba ne sɛ saa nnwuma ne adeɛ nyinaa ɛbɛgu. Honorable Minister, yɛda wase mpanimfoɔ mmienu wɔ hɔ aka wɔn ne ɛbɛdi nkɔmmɔ yɛwie a na mede mic na ma wo na asɛm bisa anaasɛ adwenkyerɛ a wowɔ no wo so wode ato aban anim ɛwɔ saa town hall meeting nea ɔbɛkasa a ɛtwa toɔ bɛyɛ Minister for Finance owura Kenoforeta nankasa na mmom saa bere moma yɛmfa nsɛmbɔ kɛseɛ enka me ho na yentu nsamfre member of parliament ofi efutu onram se obedi kan ka fante ana honorable mubo ana ono obedi kan ka fante na honorable ibia ifi ase no oda eche hen titru akwan ho asem a yerka sande wire the road fund no aka ho bi sika ye hia nde boso TV obi are demonstration hia na kwano sika ye hia za ya kwano ho adwuma them Levy obey them wa boy one men fancy boy and fancy Honorable Alex Afenyo marking.
Paying Finance Minister Oye Onyamfo Kenoforeta and Mame Esla Owusu Ekofo Oye Communications and Digitalization Minister Otipunechi aban mpanyinfo asɔfo ankorankoro edwumayɛfo ana Ghana mba ewabere ɔyɛ m'anigye da menya akonya the America sama aban ifa hɛn Levy megye dɛ sɛ aban ɔdze taxi bi anaaso dɛ ɔdze biribi reba a ɔbɛtwe sika efi hɛn kotokoma yɛte no ho nsɛm pii dza ɔresi nde ɔnyɛ wɔn ho a dza megye dɛ ɔnye nkyerɛkyerɛm ne ho anammɔ na yɛretu yi ɔdze kan mɛtwe wɔn adwen akɔ ekyir kakra ɔyɛ aban a ɔwɔ do yi ɔyɛ campaign dɛ wɔnto aba mfama no aba a wɔto wei no ne ho nsonsoando ɛna ɔmampanyin akufo-addo ndɛ ɔte egua do time a party iwɔ opposition ɔkeka nsɛm bi ne nyusuadze hun ɔba aben ma adze a ɔbɛtum wayɛ a yɛn nyinaa yɛte yɛn nuanom nso a na wɔwɔ aben na wɔso wɔ nhyehyɛe bi a Ghanafo yɛnyi tua na odu beebi na sɛ yɛka dɛ dɛmaadze yɛba yɛbɛyɛ a ahɔn nso wɔsi deebi ahɛn na yɛwɔ aben dɛmaadze MPP fo mo ba mo runtum nyɛ menye mo kɔ nsɛm kora na ebien yɛka free SHS yɛreka electricity tariffs sika a yɛtua yɛdze twe nkanea yɛka nursing training allowance yɛka teacher training allowance dɛm nzɛm a maabobɔ ne nyinara time a MPP party ɔwɔ opposition no NDC aban a na ɔwɔ do simi pii ka dɛ ɔnam dɛ electricity ekawa yɛbɔ yɛdze produce electricity ne ntin aban runtum until electricity do nti yɛn prepaid yɛ kɔkɔtɔ a na wasa yɛ complain ɔmampanyin a wefi do onya akukuduru ka dɛ sentry bi wɔ osan dɛ eka wɔ hɔ nurses training allowance teacher training allowance woyi fi hɔ wɔse ekaw bi nti wɔruntum damara so na mmɔframa dodoɔ a na wapass one BEC or the wɔkɔ secondary school wentum wankɔ because sika nyi fie debi America sa me se emi secondary school a mokɔ no ɔyɛ adom na ɔma mokɔ secondary school za me pia kan yi dɛ dɛm nsɛm nyinara na ɔyɛ hawa na ɔwɔ Ghana abana na ɔwɔ do si dɛ wɔruntum na wɔnyɛ ho hwee a yɛn nyinaa yɛnyim MPP party eba asam na ɔka ɛfa ho MPP party ne ka dɛ debi ahɛn yɛbotum yɛayɛ ne yɛayɛ ne yie ɔno nti wɔma hɛn akonya ɔne sɛ so nyankopɔn yɛ adom ma NDC ifido ma MPP bɛyi dɛm nsɛm nyinara ɔyɛ free SHS a wɔsi yɛntumi yɛn nyankopɔn na adom yɛyɛ dɛm national teacher training allowance nursing training allowance aban science bay electricity obiara anda ndwene dɛ electricity tariffs na ɔwɔ soro na obotum abefom ɔbefom ami na ɔyɛ ɔwɔ yɛgyitum yɛzi hu dɛsɛ wɔ nyinara mun aban amfa tax biara amba menye wo kase yɛnyi free SHS levy na yɛnyi free SHS tax rather no aban taxes a na NDC aban ahyehyɛ gu hɔ dɛ ɔde yɛtua no ɔpanyin kenoforiata ɔte hei ɔba parliament ɔbɛtwitwa taxes ni nyinara mu ɔdu beebi yɛn nuanom NDC fo sɛ na taxes yi nyinaa na moretwa akɔ yi mobɛyɛ dɛn na mo finance government expenditure the records are there abani yiji taxes fifi akonim ɔtetew beebi ɔyɛ dɛ ɔtetew do abani until now impose new taxational measures over burden Ghanaians. The records are there. Na levy ofihi mpanyinfo a yɛhyɛm ha yɛn nyinaa yɛnyu anda de covid bi reba ɔbɛsɛ igozi ɔbɛma nkrɔfo wɔn adwuma akɔfom ɔbɛma akwantu ahaw ndɛ ne mu nsɛm pii wiase ne beebiara abani biara rebrɛ osande sikasɛm a ɔde ɔkɔdo na abani tum ozi ne dwuman dɛm sika ne bi nyi hɔ nti yɛbɛyɛ ne dan abana asɛm a ɔreka ara nye dɛ minyimu ezi nokɔre mebɛyɛ social intervention programs may impose tax to finance them but easy baby ayɛ dui ɔde yɛ solve nzama akasɛ bien wɔ ɔman Ghana ɔne nye baaze yɛn roads yɛn akwan yɛn mmɔframma a wɔpɛ adwuma ayɛ mpanyinfo Minister of Roads wɔ ha mɛka tena egua no do as road fund chairman na menyim dɛ egua heat wɔ papapapapapa ezi nkrɔfo ka wɔbɛyɛ 5 billion sika aba no ɔyɛ 30 million itua kwesi ata inya amanze itua adwamansa kawa inya amanze wɔn na ntua na kawa na no krakra nyi Goro boys then bi obi sene a certificate bi mam na mu da certificate na akɔ viral ehwɛ WhatsApp na certificate na nante wa chair obi aso onyim obi na wɔgyegye nkɔfo wɔn iska. We need a system, a verifiable system, a reliable system over create certainty in your businessman in case you go your business and there's no certainty attached to the outcome of your business, your cost of doing business increases or you even better forget about it. Problem all when yes something there road tolls bosom 6 million 7 million afimun ahin na a kilometer of a road obakos ahin the 6 million onye nkodu hwe na mbom no yemfa ntubo ote da membra yezeba nhyehyeye wo ho no aban benya sike bia no mu yedula regularly no yebohu do contractors wo tua manka na se contractor yedwuma no wontua na kawa obede na wasana bedo ontumba yen nyinara ye wo parliament yɛkɔ yɛn mpɛsuda nsama wo bi sɛn anyi dɛ daba na ɛbɛyɛ kɔni Rose Minister or answer question chen Minister of Parliament because MPBA was a opede wɔyɛ kɔni nti mesrɛ yɛhia za yɛbotum na yɛza yɛhɛ na akɔn na yɛtum na yɛtua akontractors no ka contract or yɛ dwuma offer obi a onkita nsa na dwuma kra obi a wanko school offer obi a we ko machine operation offer university graduate engineer wafan open management team obi oye finance oye accountant oye dam inti contractors for say yetum years yenyu rehwe won adwuma ne ya up manage the economy so that what the government expects to have in terms of growth in Kenya. Until we can't allow that to continue to suffer. And Mijizi there, Levy is one major answer. Second, Finance Minister, also you start at Onye Baze. Yanem Brente, says Sierra Zo Oho Kasenyi there, or Mampain akufo-addo ni free SHS in it. From a World graduate if university. And na dodoa wobanya nyimzi wo Ghana no on the phone obi wie secondary school another okwa technical school wie ano wie university opedwuma ye ana yezu obi bia ba sha abanedwuma man so police was afibia wo for 10,000 immigration 10,000 fire service 10,000 ahina obotu afa ekwa brochi mema when ye osande ankrankre dwuma wa hye mekena za eja finance minister oya papa no ye mobora ama te owa boter oye ne dwuma hu de nkankata ma woso onya homekampo ose meye ikwa ha oroko ose meye because onara ozi dese de ankrankra dwuma na ama wedu bebi a wedu nti ozina kasa ne personal experience no all relate and there e wanyimsi a wozi ye dwuma na sabio enyi sika e ye mbor eriko bank akaji bosia ye mu binum brebo ase wa ankrankra dwuma yem na yenyim bank loan ekaja ebrowum especially when you are a starter abanin shishenje there them Levy part of it was the Boshwe Yanambana Wewe University. Yanambana Weko San Jumebi. Nambana, what when you zibi the one Casasu pede, where you one arm crown crejuma. Osande so on what you make na. In your hen a yoke chase a juma wa abim. Nature there, abanon a juma sam rokodo. Now, say Nara. And you also a amayofun, yet say and a forum like this, yeah, but pretend there's a more woman yente. Oh, yeah, yet was all politicians, Kafra. What's this car? Oh, what is Kawezi? Anayente. Muka na monka. No quarrel. It is a muka na dama. Not the main concern there. How would that money be utilized? Dembre, Minister okay. There is going to be a transparent system. Emi no yo ye botum ya track do oh abanizi da mi Levy bay no kwenyi contractors is deside wotua won ka no kwenyi ye botum ye zinwu deside in Brenton a wokite the worinya access to capital to do their business. Then we can be sure there indeed aban nenum kasa okan no ozaye dwuma no kwakura dem be music kan kan no abanizi free SHS riba no wambeji tax in fee enchen. So it means there comparing ambeyo ku ebien ebi atena bem ebi akọ position ebi asana ababio se covid amba na sikasam anya basa minjinzi de inchaban zidam Levy baba to survive as a government because abani wo track record the oben otetil tax do ibi compose o yi fi ho meanwhile no yerbebe nyina no abana anka de oh mama mensa do say amrebo county free SHS metwem abana anka dem abana anka teacher training nurses there look say ayehu de sikenyi wonti allowance ni yetwem meanwhile no abani hieska no oza solve critical nzeme bia obobo hen. Now the politics of it, I mean emi de bia meka de politics de me ye MPP obi su ye CPP or your competition se nyimpa na anka sentiam a obe de na wa babem abazinti no de bi obonsem mam no ya ze papam po a aka ye politics nti no oyedo oka bibi odu twa ozibochu ya tibida oye no mampanyin kufo ozisikas aka hye fango ne hwehwem magana yetu fango maka de was a crow castle the mabre brofi was a fango catch o mampanyin kufo yeti wo radio do p was oh fango na was we hu oye no kwar da Ghana yanam hi ene ye Kenya fango eyi mposise oya adwongo yati obibi o wa ha bia no ozi ho dese nanso na chire ni e baaze na yehu ni yehu do ye no kwar fango aba Ghana mpa yetu inde sanye dam fango ya yenyen ya che yegina hin enti Ghana mba yemfa ye NDC for na pass budget no pepepe wankade the opposed rate records will bear me out consensus ye wie ye wo bibia wo friend appropriation appropriation na nanyi de aban sike biara aban ohia tum efi parliament and some was spent ono nso ya pass by consensus. Now pass budget ewi na pass appropriation is aban ko spend aban respend no benya sika no wahi enti sika no obenya na otum na ozi ayewu roads na moframa we dwumasam akodon na se bio ono ze menyun ya adwena na ibi aka na chada wana politics in Orba ba mo wenyi sum de yenuanom watena be me dey wonye ba ya adwen de. Yes, initially was wonye ya adwen echi was so wonze wonye ya nche onye 1%. Finance minister waka ne name also telcos no onye wana akasa was 0.25 busy was obutu watso da man nti yenhwe ne farba nyi inde ehyezi nti Ghana mba enuanom nti America nyi de woma yenye jezi ewo nhyehyɛ yi mu osande abani bei obi biara owo Ghana ni abani ponya adwen beja kom de asem biara abani kae de onye to obeye nhyehyɛ biara odena no kae no se enyu ohuni a aswat. There is no way a Ghana nyi bi botu mejine bebi waka do oh dam akufo-addo abani owo opposition okada oba obeye dem obe mponye hwe inya beni ya adwempo ntumunka osande za woken wo manifesto promise no was it yedwuma. It can be 100% that I concede, but largely it's been implemented. Intino wonye jizi de inyenda adabi na mwenyi sum de embro de hinanyimi sanyankopon ya adom ne ye pass azia Ghana fo obehu no mu mfaso ibi esiga wo mampanyin kufo na abredo ibi esi o akufo-addo na abredo ne basan yehu bibi papa o abani mu nti wo ma ye nyina ye nte ye kire nyankopon ni hye won de wetim mede won asipi nyame hye won de
wo me mfansem bokesema the Honorable Alexander Fenyomaki, Member of Parliament for Ifutu na anu disem na nchechemu a oza amaheni enuanom na adofo nche bia meze akasemu no baba bibmewo na adwenkyere ewo asembise bia ewo no waso da atompanyimfo yi hona enyim bema wedri mepede mefre omani hien fotosamfo the minister responsible for finance, the Honorable Kenneth Nanaya Okutunkununku Oforiata. Let's receive him with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's good to be in Akufo-addo. Colleague ministers, thank you very much for being here. Our pastors, thank you for blessing these occasions, members of parliament, and everyone else here. It's really an exciting afternoon for me to be here with you. And as my colleagues have said, to really talk through this issue of e-levy and to see what we can do as a country to move forward and also move really out of the shackles of the West, where we continue to borrow so much money and then they dictate to us what we should do. So this is an emancipation of sort, and we should really take it to heart. We are the black star. We are the shining star of Africa. And there are three pillars that we deem we should incorporate, because ours is a country that leads and is an idea for the continent. So we started as the first independent sub-Sahara Africa country in Nkrumah's time. For our size, we led the whole continent into democracy. It took almost 60 years for us to then have an organ of the AU in our country, and that was the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which really it's the new independence. Emancipating ourselves politically in the 60s and then moving at this time to be in the hub for investments and trade, which is the new economy that we have to. But there are three pillars that our president always wants to remind us about when we talk about Ghana beyond aid. And this, in his mind, is a political independence, and Ghana, therefore, as a beacon of democracy and a safe space in this region. The second one being economic emancipation, Ghana beyond aid, which we really were en route to achieving before COVID. And even that, I think we are going to recover strongly for it. And the third leg, which the president has also emphasized on, is our spiritual independence. And so even in the midst of this leading politically a great carryover in terms of our economic achievements, and now what we call the National Cathedral, which is also going to be a centerpiece of what Ghana represents. So Ghana as an idea is something that we should capture. But what does that mean? It's going to require us to be a confident, prosperous society with the human capital that is required to be able to raise our heads and lead Africa and the black race complete emancipation. But it's going to take some sacrifices on our part and a clarity for us that we are leaders and will do extraordinary things. So this is our lot, and this is where the president insists that we should step up in history to be able to achieve that and lead Africa out of this morass. And we have seen it, especially during this time of the COVID experience, where the West have left us where we should be. We have a system in Africa where literally 90% of all our pharmaceuticals are imported, and a whole series of things that create dependency. And therefore, when the global supply chain is cut, we have problems, big problems. So we went through 2017 to 2019 with incredibly stellar results as to what we as a country had been able to achieve, moving from 3.4% of growth to somewhere over 7%, reducing our budget deficits from 6.5% into about 5%, making sure that our currency did not depreciate as it used to be, and is quite stable, and also having the necessary foreign exchange cover to make sure that we are able to support our currency and our imports. During this period, we did the impossible. We spent over 40 billion cedis on education, 14 billion on healthcare, 14.9 billion on enhancing internal security, 18 billion on flagship projects, and it just continues as to the things that we were able to do with monies that the NDC were sure we will never be able to get. So the benefits have been for all of us an all-inclusive growth in which about 1.26 million people have benefited from free SHS, 3.45 million covered by school feeding program, the NAPCO, 100,000 young persons, the largest in our history, and over 344 households given lifeline under the LEAP program. So for us, the sovereignty of our people is clear. Everybody as a citizen having a part in this enterprise of this idea of a Ghana that is confident, prosperous, and leading the nation states of the world. Our president has also earned incredible international repute, and now when Ghanaians walk outside or even here, NDC or MPP, their heads are high because they know that Akufo-Addo has done it. Let's give him a clap. So we have to continue with these initiatives. And that then is a challenge of where do we get the resources to be able to do this. Traditionally, when you are caught in such a vice, you go to petrol, you increase it, and we know the cataclysmic effect it has on all of us when we do that. So the good Lord, looking at what the president does, led us into this area of e-commerce. As the minister mentioned, we have grown from a country that was transferring about 78 billion a year in 2016 to over 500 billion this year, likely to be close to $1 trillion, 950 billion next year. Now that is a system that everyone uses, that all of us use. So when she talks about only 2.4 million people paying taxes to support the 30.8 million, you begin to see the enormity of pressure on these 2.4 million people. And how is that sustainable? How do you deepen democracy if you do not pay taxes? Your ability to challenge the political elite is muted, or you join in some underhanded things that we should not be doing. So we came back with the e-levy, purportedly for three reasons. Well, first, certainly to broaden the tax base and then to increase revenue. And when you look at Ghana and the rest of our region, we have about 12.2% or so revenue to GDP, which is awfully low compared to our neighbors, 16.5% and up. That we cannot sustain. So we need to cure that. And then when you even look at the distribution of how we pay taxes, you have literally 88% being paid in Greater Accra and Eastern region. I have to that if we combine Eastern region, Ashanti region, and Western region together, they pay 3% of national taxes. That can't be right. And the population will bear me out that that can't be right. So we must all find a way to what we call burden share to be able to do that. So let's dig deep in ourselves. Nobody likes taxes. But really, if you look at our debt situation, what we need to do, so we raise our own money to be able to build the roads that Kwesi Amwakwata is looking for, that all of you are looking for, then we must pay our way through it. If we begin to look at our employment issues, and I think that's a place that is really passionate for our president. And there's good reason for that, because what are we saying? We are saying that under the age of 24, you literally have 56% of our population in that zone. And when you look at economically active people in our country, you have about 11 million people, and that also then requires that we look at that population. Now, if you were to even begin to look, because of the issue of education, you have about 4.6 million people at primary school. By the time we get to JHS, we move to 2.6 million. So what happened to the 1.8 million of those children of ours? From JHS to SHS, we move from 2.6 to 1.2 million. So what happened to that group of people in that category? And then from SHS to tertiary schools of all nature, we get to about 500,000. So 700,000 people have vanished. And we train them in the tertiary institutions, and maybe 10% or less may get jobs. So we have an explosive problem on our hands, not because it might only cause chaos, but the sovereign rights of every individual as a Ghanaian must be something that we care about. We cannot hide our head in the sand, pretending that this is not an issue that would cripple our country and really demean the status of our persons as Ghanaians. But we're people who are the black star, who should be shining, who should be leading in the world. So, President is extremely worried about unemployment, and therefore this 10 billion Youth Start program, the largest that the country has ever seen, young pioneer pales in comparison to it or anything else. And this also came through effective burden sharing. Burden sharing in the effect that we then approached the banks, and the banks agreed to provide 5 billion for private sector and small businesses for the next 3 years. We approached our international financial partners. They agreed for another 2 billion, that's 7 billion to support this effort. And government itself, through the e-levy, will do 1 billion cedis a year to ensure that this 10 billion package enables us to take care of our youth, which is really important to each one of us. Because really, at the center of our party is the reverence for the individual citizen. Because it is that human capital that makes the difference in all that we do. And it is something that our friend, Second Deputy Majority Leader mentioned, that we have all experienced. Because yes, you see all of us here like that, but we all had very humble beginnings, and therefore I grew up in Chebi, lived a mile away from school, wake up in the morning, you go to the river, get your water, put your plantain in your pocket, and walk 1 mile from where we live to Chebi Government School. If you get to the school, because Brim is on the way and you might decide to swim all day instead of going to school. So that was what happened. And then fortunately, Dad decided that, oh, I have some son in Chebio, so let me find him. And that is what made the difference. The intervention that changed from you not being the smartest person in your Chebi school, because you didn't even go to school. You typically went swimming to find some okoto to catch. So that be it. And that changed the trajectory of one's life to be standing here today, being the final. Forward. But even in the middle of that confusion, you had a president who was clear in his mind, as he said, don't ever waste a crisis. So charge the Ministry of Finance to come up with a transformation program, even in the middle of that. That's the Mother Care Sobatampa program, so that we move our legs, we continue to look towards the sun, and find a way that when the COVID is over, we will be ahead of the game. So we have the issues of debt, we have the issues of employment, and we have Kwesi Amwakwate's issues that we have to deal with, which we all embrace because we want roads, we want digital infrastructure, we want physical infrastructure. And this is what we have brought to Parliament. What do we do about this? And the numbers are clear that the economy is shifting from the physical to the virtual, and therefore we need to be up ahead of the game. So we then brought to Parliament a 1.75% levy. As the Minister has mentioned, this is not the most egregious tax that you could get, but it really leads to the issue of inclusion of all of us to build our society and wherever we really want to go to transform this land. And that has been the subject of this debate. The question is, do we want to move to the New Jerusalem? Do we want to move to this new El Dorado so that we can, as a people, show that with our own resources, and there's plenty of it, as you see various buildings coming up in this country. And even as you look at 1D, 1F, I think we started the 181 or so 1D, 1Fs around. Nobody thought it was possible, of which 106 are complete around the districts, and 81 odd and more are happening. You can also see what happened with Planting for Food. That has resulted, in a sense, in actually being able to export some food at certain points in time. So that really is the reason. Can we sustain our debt and pay for it ourselves so we don't go out borrowing so much? Can we have the resources to support employment, which is key and affects all of us, and really is very dispiriting and breaks down the dignity of our people? That is not the people that we are. And then can we support our infrastructure to be able to then increase productivity, move around the country, and create that modern society that we talk about. And that really, in a sense, is also now going to be elevated by AFCFTA, which is here, so that the issue of regionalizing our economy is now upfront with us. And that is a logistics hub, automobile hub, tourism hub, healthcare hub, etc. And then you see the modern economy that our forebears were confident that we will be able to construct in our land and show Africa and the world the way to go. So when people say, why e-levy and why you should reduce it? Well, we listened. We truly listened and said, well, maybe when something is new, you know, you can have very negative thoughts on that. But we've had a lot of the history of that, and that people one way or the other in opposition would oppose anything, whether it's good or bad. But we know, we all know, that the council norma efe and the sika and efe. In the area, sika, I am friend talk at the So that really is what we talk about when we say we want this e-levy to ensure that we are masters of our own destiny, that what happened with COVID will not have such a devastating effect because we'll have our own resources and we'll be able to guide ourselves in to be able to do what we do. And I think people forget what happened when we were in the IMF program. We couldn't pay for nurses and teachers. We couldn't hire anymore because there were restrictions on that. I mean, it's just really thinking you can go back to Egypt in a way in which we have forgotten how difficult and pernicious that master from Washington was. So we can deal with them for them to give us advice, but we need not ever get into IMF program. And if we don't do this e-levy, you are just pushing yourself in a way that would potentially end up in such a disaster. And it's I mean, there was a warning of that because last week was a very difficult week for the country. Last week we got downgraded by Fitch, ostensibly because they did not believe we could raise the revenues that we had forecasted, because we were fighting about e-levy. But what does that mean when you get downgraded and the spreads widen for your bonds? Essentially, what we are saying is that if you go back to the market, you may pay about 500 basis points more, which means that if I borrowed $1 billion, I pay $50 million more each year. The bonds are usually 10 years, and so 50 times 10, that's $500 million a year. All because we were arguing and not being able to make up our mind on resources that we needed. So we need to moderate that, because the consequences are quick. But I'm sure last week there were other things that also were difficult for us as a country. The Bogosu incident was not good for anybody. And then, of all places, Comoros could beat us in soccer. Now that should not ever happen again. I hope the coach has been taking Agyapong out of our country by now. So this is where we are with e-levy, and why we therefore need it, why we should be passionate about it. It will give us about 6.9 billion Ghana cedis, but it's really the beginning, because as you put these taxes in place, you sharpen the administration of it, and as the growth trajectory, as described by the minister, will be clear. That is going to be an anchor for our taxation, and therefore a continuing capacity and robustness of our ability to get the revenue mobilization that is required. Now, the e-levy, what does it cover? I'm sure we'll do a Q&A on that. So it's mobile money transfers between accounts on the same electronic money issuer, mobile money transfers from an account on one EMI to a recipient on another EMI, transfers from bank accounts to mobile money accounts, transfers from mobile money accounts to bank accounts, and bank transfers on a digital platform application which originate from a bank account belonging to an individual. Then also, what does it not cover? Cumulative transfers of 100 cedis per day by the same person. So if you transfer 100 cedis per day, there's no e-levy on that. I remember being Frenchiniko, or Achimhimai is the new improved name, where a lady said, Nasada, yende 100 cedis you could employ dos. Na Sumibia, say you 3,000 cedis a month for a Dimia transfer. In the other, 100 cedis exemption, one of the audience a high dodo. It's a 30 cedis, 20 cedis now, a young woman. So, Hokram po Nipatiasia say, we should encourage that. But really, we have pegged it at 100 per day, which means 3,000 a month you will not touch. And I'm not sure there are any poor people below above the 3,000 level. So transfers between accounts owned by the same person would also not be touched by e-levy. Transfers for the payment of taxes, fees, and charges, and anything on the Ghana.gov platform would also not be charged. Electronic clearing of checks is exempt, and specified merchants, i.e. merchants whose payments to commercial establishments are registered with GRA for income tax and VAT purposes. And then transfers between the principal, master agents, and agent accounts would also not be charged. So really, in the end, that becomes, where the tire meets the road. And what we are saying, in effect, is in looking at these issues of debt, of employment, of infrastructure. I think we should all look to support this. 1.75% of monies that you send around is not the money that is going to kill you, but the cumulative effect of moving from 2.4 million to maybe 11, 12 million paying their part of our taxes will just create this pool of resources for us to be able, as a country, to continue to hold our heads high and be that free, independent nation of pride with the three pillars of political independence, economic emancipation, and spiritual, I don't know what the word should be, also spiritual elevation would occur for us as a country. So let's really hold our MPs' feet to the fire to let them know that we understand who we are as a people, a proud nation who want to pay their own way. Yes, we haven't for a long time. And then there are issues of accountability. To Enyinam, Apapem, Himai, and Pram Pram in Greater Accra, it was very clear, as Honorable Markin mentioned, the issue of accountability. So how do I then come to you every quarter or to Parliament to show how those resources were used, to show what we have used e-levy for, so that we all move in step and begin, to reduce the cynicism on politicians and accountability for all of us. But when you pay, you are likely to have that voice to be able to yell, shout, and demand that. Yeah. So we have the Youth Start program as part of it going forward. We'll be able to sustain our debt and reduce it and pay our way through, and the issues of infrastructure, digital and physical, would also, especially roads, will also be taken care of. So ladies and gentlemen, this really is an opportunity to ask other questions that may be on your heart, and to understand the sincerity of where government is coming from, of even the limited resources, the amazing record that we have established, and what we need to do these 3 years, and then to continue to break the 8, because we have been shown to be faithful of little, and therefore will do more. So, as the Bible says in Genesis, if these people can speak one language, then there will be no restraint to what we can do. So let's speak this one language of e-levy, let's make it pass, and there will be no restraint to where we'll go as a people. But we need the spirit of courage, of love, and self-discipline for us to get there. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you.
Honorable Minister for Finance, Honorable Ken Oforiatta, Honorable Bano be in 70 Bianwa, Obebo, Ninkomodi, no Tofa, Ewotrimu, Jumedi, GTV, FN Live, Joy News, Metro TV, Net2 TV, GH1 TV, City TV, TV3, Wontumi TV, Asasi Radio, Asempa FM, Kesben Television, Happy FM, Afima FM, Home Base Television, Bright TV, Ago 96.9 FM, Anansi Radio, Bosome FM, Ofi FM, ETV, YFM, any stations a whole door I organ has a FN Live. Baby, you know, so was in Bisebi and Argentine, as Habri, and Ka Otto and Sao Baby, I wanna, made him Savage also, na mama yet the Akasamuna bro, me who are brandy be your share, and tomata dear short sleeve, Ewa Hasi, them so no bedi kind, na Mpamcho yemfa Akasamuno, Emma Openi Bako. Yemfa Akasamuno Openi Bako. Nti befia se wechiro Bako mienu miensa ene enai. Nti Openi Pacho for Mike and start to feature my opening Pacho body and watch Rebebia Ufi na Agentrebia and Asembisebi or na Odiato impending for enim. Seni impending for a day and EDA Amaye Nani Edin Comono. Agentrebia Yebegiatum and EDA new boo and I was a fast aquan so. Old baby and say, Cordia, I know what they ought to suffer me say, Mindumo Mike and baby a one. Did see a benefit. So Penny Pachokaza.
Good afternoon. Pacho me pesa me ketchi kakra.
Pacho Fro say.
The friend Dr. Isaac Osafo Champon.
Dr. Isaac Osafo, but Dr. na medical tanani. Pacho Kaza. Dr. Isaac
Osafo Champon.
Osafo Champon.
I am the same. Many as I can in a chairman Levy home. And he said, Levy, the discussions near the Nano or me, my dream mood yet. I had a rebel mine. But issues in Kitty view on ma, Senia impending for church, the drinks and the pines were no. Make Buru impending for our animal, especially Honorable Ken Oforiata. So I say, taxi chiawi 77 per dia but the person me do two just say the could report in me 11 many jehon pa ne say ye won kofo bi wo man mu artisans in particular carpenter for mason for electricians omo be bow down so ma adwuma no omo be ye bibia ma enso tax a wo mu tua no 77 per dia unhunu direct tax a ye tua eti wo ma dwene mu no 11 no even though ebema nkofo bi omutua direct taxes already no ombesen tua bi no ba on saafo ne nọọso nti no lefwa so na mo suggestions we na person kam di tudwa
pacho yetio
se aban betumi a anka yebenya a separate account ya 11 sika e ba no eno ho no mo na ebekọ na yehunu se ebi abosumi bia no sa sika ino na nkonko fra the consolidated fund that ebi on be use kanu say ahoche bi aba ba bi ntia de kwa koye bibi fufuro na emom no yehu say sa futuo yi sika egumuni na se ba ne say o se ye bibi a ye de yensa kobo mu an ye de ye ne ye de ye na second suggestion so ne say possible a ntabosome miensa bia aban emma ye hunu 11 sika no a yagegye no dodo a yenya ni dwumade a aban this can ayo nti me fan say kwan na wo say odi ya akwan ayede ayeni it will be on the ground for people to appreciate it say bia eniema awo nkata so ma yese omde beye no enu ni a ye behunu na say oh ene ye twa ye no na ye di yeni na ne krakra no ni hu say ye say omo etua 100 Ghana cedis no so we transfer to this cabin endru 100 a untua hwe say possible anka ebitumi send this car as much as 3,000 10,000 ewo mobile money so nti ebetumi so aba ne say bia ebetumi ameska no edum pempen so bia sa level no ye en charge nko biem se ne be ya anka obi a otubi send be 10,000 a onkonkotu ya sa 1.5 non flow say scan ye bebre mano
mate wasem na mpacho me monsem mano ose onu edi kan onu de osusu say asempa emom enko osusu say abrebia na yembu hu akonta sempo no ye benya account for bi na enko consolidated fund mu a yemfengu mema mpanimfo a kire semrama ho kwan say enye ne saa osan so kire say nka bosumi miensa bia no yembu hu akonta na empo ekosoro no enka de abroni friend cap na threshold bi be wo ho anka de account pam chomo de akasemu na ma ni poto su mienu ana openi akasemu no wo ho mpacho okasa ye ni bre ye hwe wo TV ni radio ahodo so timpacho pamcho ni microphone no wo form kakra
yeah ye fami ama buchi
ama
buchi
ama mpacho ere adwuma
Ghana Library Authority.
Ghana Library Authority.
Tewu of TUC.
Tewu, okay.
Yes. So, every say 11 a year. Now, my suggestion is 100 citizens, which is meant for those at the, let's say, the poorest level. Let's raise it from between 300 to 500. As I say, also, young school. We want to send them 200 or 300. for them also be paying 1 or 2 emergencies that will crop up. So I'm suggesting that let's raise this from 100 to between 300 to 500.
I'm out to make kind of cheek a crab, mommy. Mr. Anna, what you doing yet?
Maybe say, yeah, raise 100 now, yeah, exemption. Let's say it's for those at the grassroots car. Yeah, raising no. Embra saying between 3 to 500. Between 3 to 500. Yes. I'm a butcher, too. Yes. Pacho Matimida was say. Akasamuni and Fanny Porto, me and San Femano. Na Yenti Nasem. Pacho say a butcher. Tuntum way. I was almost sanitizing. Timomo sanitizing, we say. They are sanitizing Pacho Isu. Now, Pacho Casa.
The Pacho, your friend, Kwame Bafo.
Kwame
Bafo.
Kwame Pacho, Juma.
Me a driver.
We a driver. Pacho, it's you.
Me Casa, me free. I just saw a buggy or airfo. Koforidia. Now, me moment there, the American say, he Levy no, and Kaiba boy. Now, a dear Bakwan, a hammer back on the say, Ghana, ye cast a sadia with Beboya, now ye dear Amanyosem. Ye the year Amanyosema, MPP for sorry, I was say NDC for the ending. NDC for sorry, I was say MPP for the ending. Na Yura Bakwan Wafimu, Namefani currency, President Mills, or the VAT a buy. Na VAT no de buy no. As some I can say, na MPP for say a VAT in it, a be higher journey, a be how we say, and so VAT in the buy no, MPP buying when chem or twasso. And they say VAT no buy now what me about no what twasso dia. Says I love you so bad. That young Cramabia, and this is for so baswa. Almost say a new, or monfaso, and so nya dia sadia we ba, or mubichem. Intimisre, yenina yamwa, nasa yaboa, nasa say Levy ba, nasa bet me aboa, na ya manum, yenuanom, obia obi here juma, any idea to me aboa dia. Young faso, na yamwa, na samba ko ha me say, Yura abambi babing, or say, Obeji Sadia or Yatuminti or two kind. I could hear no yare, it's yes, Reno. One tennis in the Yintum, na we are Wako, Massam.
Kwame, our driver, just so, we say, Ode Ojitum, name of politics, no, na yin. Ura Bagby, name according to a note to yen to me in Kansas, you say, Obeji Atumuntina or Yenis, I know the yen to me in Kansas. Yerhemianka or mine wasem, Nasania Waka and for politics no, and Tunche. Yebeji Argentina Mienu, Namaman penny for a yano, Patch or penny or crack as a monowana air.
Yes,
or penny or crack as a monowana.
Your family Nana say, because of Koforia. The Dika Mama Wakaba, Eba Honorable Belfi, Pesuaso. Na Maya de Pass Mobile. Na program Papa. The messenger will say, Mama, Chini Noson, Brofono Dosso Dodo. If you say, Mifra will be my name, some in fact, they come on the our market. Market of a Pimduna, my America say, I feel quite a blown brofacus here. You hear ammonia, to be sure, tell you another wound to me. And I'm going to say, now, Madame Esla, and I also. I was mammy, I dare on your bed, Papa, to me, car, and me the car speed and the buy. Locking of Bedia and Madame Sudia de Nakuchi. It must them a Jenamo Yeno, a Winia, none ya honorable Erikopoku, no yet press conference. Chi, no car, or Chemu. A 2 MPP for so, mine a brofo. Ah, market for a soon a tax, no. Oko market, a judge for the tax, no. One of them is Jano. Nipano do say, 77 only my dear, Cacrebi. Also, Tiadiana say, Naya and Tiasiano. Do na enko school kwatire.
Na say, yeda wase ate ase na nkomo na nkasa wo ho bibia na.
O say,
nkomo na nkasa wo ho asem bia na.
Ye no kan say, Mesrem say ya no say da de na iko no. Akamo de bema MPs no. Na nkan pesuaso no. No akọ no chirechire mu e man krofo ate ase yie. Because recently honorable be fi Townhall meeting bi. Okokoko mra ma de na fine. E bi kamo be na sa na ka MPs no okọ ne pesuaso a no organize no achire mu yie. Masemo ano no me da wase.
Na say mama nka bibi kakra bi ncheo. and then pennyfo akasa nyina honorable afenyo marking okan afante honorable eslo so okan brofo kan twi sanse TV stations to be brief no brofo me amegina hey brofo ne fanti nyina makabi finance minister so se na me kan no wie na obebo ne tofo a ono so be kire na asem ni na tofa mu otwi MPs so bebre ago MPs bebre amuhu won wa hey dia wo kan no anomo ye omo kwa probo e kire mu obabi a wo so omo kire mu nyina ti wasem ne yate na supempa cho mefa de twa to mienu na mama mpanimfo eya no ago opani a ukra kasa mutuntum no be kasa ansa na de ukra kokko na kasa pacho kasa
yo mpato ya from Seth Agyapong
Seth de juma na ye
me teacher ni
Seth or ye teacher Seth ye tie o
yo masam ne se eto de untumi ntuna mamu kasa untu ato eto de ye yenim se no ne de kire man but the hadwen ne se da bia ko diska for example auditor general
to meko oba no kura microphone kokko na sana ba minister pacho orura said teacher say person tia say watete no from say auditor general say 12 billion ayira na 12 billion ayira de na nkoje no na wo beji 7 billion wo Levy mu pacho no ebepe anu yie kakra e wo wankasa wo directly ansana edikan no ago ansana edikan no emrama wo kwan say yen create account for from fenkotumu ana ena nkuntabuo adwenkyere ba ko ne se nka be boso miense bia yembu ho akonta na obi en ho se ampa simple ana teku ana dama na ejeye na we ni e da ehwadwa minister meba ho nka ne de adwenkyere nti mienu we meba ho abaji adwenkyere mpacho de twa to na maba minister
penimfo me ba mo nyina adwo masamba ko a me pese me kan se sa ade we eya ade papa na me pese me hu sentia one anya town hall meetings yi ansana opanyin dia ko na asanya be ebia ne education die mpamoto mambo me dia fra me Joyce Yosin Jan me a retired teacher bibi wo ho na ye papa say ye nim say CST bay there was so much opposition inti bibi papa say ba na was some dikan ema ye asefo no ye te ase na yen ya yatumi kasai anka yatumi a convince nkrofo ebi kranka ye be push no ama mo adwuma ayemre enti no yasra se bibi papa say ba mo famra bottom no na yen starting fear eho ansa na mo de kodu empanimfo mu afei ne amenti ase bi oni say ade a ne yesi ye de beboa road fund yen wieye na tole wa man mu nyina amodja sa sika ne esompa at least you can come one 1 kilometer of road. Ye jai inti say way an ye ya Mr. Bisa say
near the
potol.
Pacho ya me mo se ma mo ebisa nsem atradwen nyina meto nsafre honorable minister responsible for finance na wa boa ye ma ya je anu yie e won semfo edikan be ye wi a mesan ba mo ho ye be ne mprensa ye wi a mesan ba mo ho na ma je adwenkyere ne nsem bisa minister de edikan pa ne say emrabe ma ho kwan ma ye bi account ago ana mo pesa asem ne be yi ano ana asem no mo pesa be yi ano yesre mo menti ano yi no minister de edikan ne say emrama ho kwan say ye bi account foforo na nkoto mu a enko consolidated fund no mu ana na adwenkyere ba ko no say nka bosumi miense bia e betumi abu ho akonta say ne enya say ne de aya na nka ne adwenkyere na mom dia etwa to mienu no sef a o ye teacher say what is 12 billion ayira na no auditor general kan ye na che say no kura na say eye bia dia auditor general edika hu ni mfiti ase afina benho be de mosuko san say no kura dia anka na adwenkyere ne say enke enkoje no ne enyai enkomodi a aka no ena em say Gladys and Grace Joyce say in the future na the akawe ni no yemfi ase yemfi for months na dia akosoro nyesef esoro ansa na dia ba please am pajon ka utumi ya no kakrama ya kebere mo friends and monchia minister responsible for finance
You, that's you. Because Dr. Isaac, and I started say young artisans no own theatre and another young show make sure say on betia. Now way back home, and I doc idea is me person me try on say idea day Ghana card for no ekoma GRA. That's a GRA one war at the tax identification numbers by 5.5 million. Any day Ghana card in the database he come on to another 15.5 million. In your monodoc, 60,000 doctors and lawyers and architects and whatever own to your pay. In the new masons near artisans and yeah, Casapi or radio so near I don't know. I want to make chain wall born in a cantonment, no. Once own to ya. And I want to canon swim with you. Levy, dear, senior buying digitalization, Vice President, Minister of Communication, a bit much yena, Senebea Obehu near Obiaye. It's very easy to talk about the artisans and masons. Now, once we say, and if you are on car, in the moment you are on car there, then we'll be able to account for them and do that. I think the issue of separate accounts, consolidated account, any BBA, near what is about. I think what is really in the end key. Okay, me go around the Nipa kind and accountability on a quarterly basis, and I think that should be done. And threshold, I think those will be administrative issues. If we say, we'll start a new taxa, Nipa people say, on bed dodging the day, and due to me whom we are, then you adjust the tax to be able to do that. And now because is it Amabutri or can say you move at the exemption of 300 CDs and could do 300, 500. And the current say 100 CD no Sebi, HSA Bia, Bosumi Bia, was salary and now Sika won't same no 3,000. And if you want 3,000 no. I just sure say a dose, sir. Now 300 to 500, no so. Say we are done now over me. Now you're in the daily, it won't affect you. There's a chance to avoid the tax. And I am driver. Is it Kwame? Kwame can speak of one and the engine I bomb pie man send a bear. Betono and send our kind as taxes easier opposition back as one pay and so on bar own chum and continue send your bear Ibineska Yadibay a Juma as I say now set can Auditor General assembly. What a general report, no, because it was 12.2 billion, and once the IRA. But true to the matter, and so we share report now. What to me who said 10 billion out of that are collections that are going on for loans and collections that GRA is also continuing. Now GRA numbers, no, so. They sometimes penalty, they multiply it by 3. And two virgins as it can be sumho and a young of fire, and yes, sir. But still, no one be what, as I say, encourage, send a bayer, you bet me, are collected. And then another 1.8 billion was what they term irregularities. To say via MMDC, a TIA OB 300 CDs. And do not fill the correct papers. And yes, you cannot hear reporting. Into Oshemua, you won't get that alarmed. Into Sika Yeshano, a Sika here. you tear taxes, no, and I was say, na you levy idiot, say about how. Na say, why wouldn't him say, you call baby to say London this within the idea. One tax rate grab 55 or 60%. And there's always a time to start. You start levy once 1 year Juma Yunhuno, when you now be bannetinum, now also on which you will be a plea. Until Joyce and so say, Bibi Papa say, I don't know, I'm bantam. I mean, when you know, not your bantam. Now, told booth are somewhere okay. You unpack a million, 78 million. And we are going to lose from that. And the question really for us is, say what the trotromone or how move the heat and all of that, you know. And I say, Nadi Crampo, as a sea giant, send a bear, several sorry, Kojuma. And Yafina, watching traffic move for another hour or so. You know, any bibia a fata. Enti Onyamibwa, Levy, go through. Na real roads are, I could see person of build the highways, you know, and no, not really, you begin say, yeah. And the tolls only ever but a 6-lane highway. Kwesi si obesi amayen ansan yakọ then ebe ya trotras near the montra kwemu abre na you in future show near the near China in life and so higher better and to me just say the kojo na kan nyina
Minister, I say you better call for second round of questions about 3 round of questions but I say KTU Council Chair Professor Pori e wa say o pese or charging kakra but you say prof who had say no crescent person charging but you mami huna yemfa microphone in mouth prof I say nti ye be fia say o prof na mafa 9 aka ho mafa 9 aka ho na yetimi etie o manu dey say prof but you mind tell
I can be you where the self and chirko hina what can be aka ho Mestre Abano said on share MPs this is ena NCC kiti na one mo enkyerɛkyerɛ adeɛ mu yɛ sɛ na me ba ha no Matthias yɛsen sɛ da bia na yɛ ntɔkwa wɔ radio so no enti if sɛ NCC is one of their jobs ena this is ɛne ɛsɛ wɔn yɛ adwuma sɛ bia yie ba unya 5 minutes kura na kɔsrɛsrɛ ase a ɛbɛboa because nyamene ne korɛ bi yɛ kratiri nso ɛnɛ Matthias more than near yet ewo radio no asema mesre mo ano because yes na ye wonchi MPP for say ye NDC for say ye no ya himfui yetimi kan bi papa eso bia no bia ni ba bia ogina it is arms of government na won hwe say wo be mo ademudi a won de be yo adwuma no na won ma kyerɛkyerɛ wo krasin na obia ate ase medase
pa Pachopeni okra kasemu mfitiase ne ekwachi okakra nka wo ba anim ha sei kakra ma me anka beboa me ti pempeni fo be 9 nafa microphone mom na yenti omuso omasemo ase osofo
hello
Pacho me ba ma minti osofo ngi na me bravo why
yo if I'm your friend Reverend Dr. Michael Usutego mesre senior
Reverend Tego
me bacho senior prof kan no mene ne ya dwen ka ye ya sofo ni sei no enipa dodo na hye yase entinka mesre se adepa se badia ka yamfra sofo ni nyina ni ye nyo bi nkyirechire yemu na yenti ase ye na yenso yetimi ko a ye pirichi kura wie ni Yusuf minute ni yetimi di kyirechire members me gidi se ebeko medamasi
medase so for kan na maka bible mu Christocracy yemfa Caesar de ma they are a Caesar there is a to ya no krampo no if you say bible mu enyenne but opani bi e share blue shirt but red tie yenko na wona Let Mammy Okra Mike in Abapeni, or Mammy, but you, yes, Mammy Okra Mike.
You me that's
me
pacho, your friend Margaret, Mr. Market Woman. Miss Ramo Meso, Master Kakra say, Adia, by the abbey, Miss Sunamin Tiasia Kura. And then me buy her in a much late him, and Matias here. If you say, ya near your home, now you call IMF, ya. One way you cry, you go catch like say, young coaches homosexual too. If you say, yes, I can show manu, you need shake. No moment, you miss Kakra, and study, be I will start here and Kakra. If you say, yeah, you can't cry for funny, ma. Neja and cry for no drum, yeah, mobile money in your near the mawum. Eti yadaroma ye triaha na udi mano ye onu su de be kwa you no be say tria so eti ka munye de bibi kakra ma ye gide ye gitum pa eti say yesuro se ye be ko say IMF no o kira nko yesuro yakọ ka kira ye say munye homosexual tu enye sa o ye nsa so akọche nanum eti de obeka bi ye say ye di so eti no ye mpe eti mra na mudi aba ne de ni say na menti ase and so na me ba ha no Matthias eti mi ko dwaso me de ko na ebom ye sra mo say mo de ye starti ka munye bibi kakra ma yen ma de sra no no me da ma
Minister Pacho kasa merchant accounts ma menom ne anuanom ma edidi dwa merchant accounts omo so betu ato ne bia na so omo de no mo de kan yen hyehyɛ say merchant account no omo de no enka ho bi obeyi no ama opani ba kokura na afi be wo ha sei na magye anu ye yes opani
honorable medase your friend Honorable Charles Edu Asino, me elected assembly member. Me sign the national president for GAM, Ghana Association of Assembly Members. Honorable
President of Ghana Association of Assembly
Members.
Pacho
Yi Levy adepa. Na nya ye hu ni say approach na ye de yare no na emwa na me ma me ni kasa no. O ka say anka yen fa fi soro na mu ye fa fi ase downward approach no eno betimi aboa me hu ni say yen assembly members no ye wo electoral area ba bia Ghana ha ba bia eti with this na me papa ni ka say ye ma MCs no kwan a omo betimi aye adwuma no say more resource yen assembly members na esa ni say ye wo electoral area bia no ye be free community meetings, town hall meetings like this, and the community members will be present. And what we need from leadership and say, Boba mind a little education on this Yi Levy and any other government initiative bia or the Bebano. Say, Moma in that education, we the assembly members who are on the grassroots now, you bet me I empower it more than say you be in the top approach. And there be so no, your information be a my biano, you the NCA brofono any advertisement or radio so no I am pimpino and kwasenya ya ebet my friend nipa nanya no 101 na ye na kasa because o kase o de kofa Adum FM nipa dodo ahina etie Adum FM obi wo ha that time on tie Adum FM o tie different radio sa advert na koso Adum FM no onti and as e koso UTV a o hwe UTV o hwe ebia City TV and mo fan fire assembly members we are the grassroots. Thank you very much.
Openi where the Mr. Mambisa who foaso and now foaso.
Me foaso.
Any pacho me pobi on foaso.
Me foaso or no. Me foaso so me was some cow.
Okay. So far as obi oje mic no foaso nanso. Me pobi on the on foaso kra. Obi on foaso kra. Na mo fa mic ne ma no. Ni enti ono so na sem. Boko. Ye pese ete. Ah de enti aban panimfo aba ni say ye pese ete adwen ahodo no. Tebe pacho fa mic ne ma obi a so ono omfo aso no ono so nkyere na adwen na enye so omo afo aso nko adwen na yetie
yo your friend me ago
pacho wo fo aso na omfo aso
me fo aso na me sam fo aso me ba e ya se bisa ni pacho me ba pacho me fo aso
opening si abotre nipa be ye du edikan kasa no obi afo aso ye po obi ono mfoaso na tie ono so na dwen kire me afa mic na mani po we kire no so ono Openi, what's the home for us? Ameboa. And it's ready and I won't for us. The entire one year Casafoni na drink.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon. But you're frozen.
Benjamin Darkun, I'm a student. My tree is not really that good, so I'll communicate purely in English. I have some, initially I wrote down 10 questions, but I'll narrow it down to just 4. My first question is... Benjamin.
Okay, take your time. Are you one of the persons who disagrees with the E-Levy?
Yes, please.
So explain to us why you disagree, what you disagree with.
Yeah,
so that it can be responded to.
I'm explaining in the form of questions. The
Go
first
ahead.
question is, how do we categorize the E-Levy? Is it another income tax, a capital tax, a sales tax, a payment tax, or all of the above? However, one avoids this tax when they opt for cash payment. That is the first question. The second one is, corruption is a major problem that only receives lip service in Ghana. The Auditor General indicates that about 12 billion cedis remain unaccounted for over the last few years.
Ago. Ben, go ahead, we're listening. And then the
last few years. Why E-Levy only rakes in 6.9 billion rather than recovering 12 billion? So why are we not going after the monies that have been lost due to corrupt acts?
And the
third question is, proceeds from E-Levy are pegged towards road and transportation development, youth employment, security, and the growth of the IT infrastructure in the state. The question is, what happens to previously earmarked levies? Communication tax, sanitation levy, HESLA. How have they improved their earmarked sectors? What is the guarantee that E-Levy will be used for its intended purpose?
Thank you, Ben.
The 2021 population...
Ben, it's okay. Thank you. You gave us 3. I deliberately sought for you, but you gave us 3. Can we get... Hello? Gentleman in the jacket, please. You also Chairman, please, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, my name is John Ewua, the CEO of Ghana Association of Banks. Since the bill was laid in Parliament and the discussions have been ongoing, as a trade body, we've been engaging with the minister and his team. I think the very final engagement was just last Monday, where we had a confirmation that a person-to-person bank transfers will not be in scope for the levy. But during the minister's presentation, I saw that the scope-in services included person-to-person bank transfers. I just need a confirmation whether there's going to be a subsequent amendment that will factor in the agreement that the minister had with the banking industry. What was agreed was that the minister will maintain an administrative right or privilege to reintroduce or scope in person-to-person bank transfer in the event that following the implementation of E-Levy, there is a significant platform shift from the Momo platform to the banking industry. And we agree with the minister on that. So we just believe that, or we are re-emphasizing the agreement we had with the ministry that the person-to-person bank transfers should be scoped out. Thank you very much.
John Ewua, Chief Executive of Association of Bankers. Thank you very much for joining us and for the thoughts that you have shared with us. Minister, I'm going to invite you to respond to these ones, and then I'll come for the very final batch. So Mr. John Ewua and the Bankers Association want clarity on the person-to-person transfer exemption. Benjamin wanted some guarantees. He says he's opposed to it because he's not sure what guarantees we can give that the money will be used for the purpose. And then I think the other comments were requests that other groups should be factored into the education. Minister.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. John, I think you should rest assured about the discussions that we had. Benjamin, you know, the issue for me, Benjamin, is that you should we should really think very holistically. Benjamin, I'm addressing your question. John, I think I've answered yours. But Benjamin, I have 3 or 4 questions here. Just say what type of tax it is, whether it's income, capital, or whatever. And then the last 2 years, corruption and the Auditor General's report. I'm already. And then the proceeds from other earmarked funds. And I will say what type of guarantee do we have? I think those are all fair questions, but honestly, if you look at the enormity of the problems we have to move to another level. And I think you need to concede that the economy is changing towards virtual economy, e-commerce economy, and that tax handle should be brought into, our arsenal of taxes that are required. Guarantees that we have was what somebody suggested, that we have these quarterly reporting mechanisms, and that would be helpful. And it's helpful for all sorts of things. Then, the way you spoke English, I imagine that you are also quite familiar with our macro fiscal numbers. When you talk about other earmark numbers, and you know that we are running a budget deficit, you know that the impact of the COVID was literally about 25 billion. How does a country support that type of contraction in its economy? You also know that compared to other West African or African countries, Ghana, even at this point, was able to eke a positive growth rate. You know what we did during the COVID time that no other African country did. We have about 300,000 people that died on the continent. Ghana was 1,379. So you need to give credit where credit is due and be able to advise yourself as to the integrity of the numbers and what that means to you when you are doing your analysis. And where there is praise, there should be. Where there is caution, there should be. So issues of quarterly reporting to encourage transparency is what matters. And it's not me started at the end of the cancer, no my effect. Muka bruchia, na mwenyeji, unim taxes I won't ya, intia, oko hoya fesano. Now about chrome dia, pursue chibi, and unnecessary also dream. At the Obaka's a Charles and name Margaret, and so can the issue of a gradual approach to the taxes. And only I say, very near, as I say, but I mean, I can't say if you are never in Dodo, any other, and I mean, so you go around that, yet that same Asemna on Kano. Intina ya a friend saying, Telcos no cocaine, send your bay, I want the no back for more. Now you relieve citizens. Now so, Sikai here, ya de bay a Juma, ya kaya no say employment, any debt infrastructure no, not still yan saka, send your bay, you beat me a Jumano. Margaret and Zuka say, something a little bit more gradual. Now, Margaret, ABI is only Mr. Benjamin Dako and Sukasa. And now, what you say, I am a Fadiano, and you BBS a cohopra into no can't the technical no matter what type of tax in idea on drink near Beba ABC, the co IMF. And also, now BB was also a friend. Merchant accounts. Just a merchant accounts no register of GRA. Not just no, you are exempt from it because now they have the capacity on between attract Sika once a year. And going through the merchant account, you become part of the formal economy and you also get exempted from that. Internona Minister.
Yɛde yɛn nkɔmmɔdie no ɛreba awieeɛ yɛde nsɛmbisa anadwenkyerɛ a ɛtwatoɔ ɛnan ɛna ɛbɛwie medi kan fa baako yɛde krataa brɛ m yɛsɛ Dr. Isaac Asare ne kosa ne sɛ 1.75 no ɛbɛba abɛka their telcos no ɛgye dɛda no ho anaa menim sɛ moakyerɛ m but communications minister mɛsrɛ wo sɛ wobɛba na wɔba abɛkyerɛ m sɛ 1.75 no ɛba abɛka bɛyɛ 2% na telcos no dɛda na ɔmogye no ɛho anaa telcos ne deɛ no ɛbɛ free hɔ ti communications minister mɛfrɛ mo abɛyi ano ɔpɛni patro wo kasa wie na ɔbɛma yɛ wɔ ha kasa na nke ama yɛ nuanom mmaa mmienu ɛso akasa na afei yɛde nkɔmmɔdie no abɛwie yɛmfa wo mfi aseɛ
Medindi Dr. Samuel Amponsa. I'm a management consultant and I'm a reverend minister as well. Media no ye asembisa ne sanya adwenkyerɛ. I believe strongly say Ghanaians are discerning people. But the policy be say ba na yantimi anchiremu year. Eventually the opposition party will take over the argument. Na obi kase yebetimi parliamentarians are communicating the change to the people. But we know, sir, we have 50% share in the parliament. So eventually when you want to communicate this message to the people, you are targeting 50%. And the communication minister, if there's any communication channels or distributive channels via, what they are talking say, Levy tomorrow, how is she going to drive this communication thing to the people of Ghana? Now, say if there are any strategies via media to Kwemwa, even you want to say your parliamentarians no even your basic schools no crowd. When the student is empowered, obetimi akofia ko kyerɛ ne maame. Enti yentimi nkyerɛ emu yenti na de bia no Ghana for rejecting any proposal we bring on board. Enti yɛma nkyerɛmu no nkɔ. Enti yɛma nkyerɛmu no kɔ animu a megye di sɛ yɛbɛgye atum na yɛbɛtimi ayɛ ho adwuma. Yɛdase dɔk yɛdase. Pacho opani okra kasa.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. If I'm a Prince Kofi Ban areas Kewo Eniboni. I'm a grassroots communicator. I am important move for a chinyebia abba ho was Levy home. And my friend name penny for Agyapong school near the year from a young Tiasian. No, but you smart me, say, maybe so penny and casa. I mean, family. Dear, at the say, how much less me be say? Yes, so sending mobile money, dear, you better. Me say, Sikadu do I and only pani send here. Mobetimiati. Na, ya mobetimiati no. Do say, and a mobetimiati free size can so. And no pay any here. Sir, 20% ni 7.5% no one tiasi. To me, Mr. Sika, actual Sika. Okay. I'm a better fish on number control.
Me pacho ya te da sipa. Na pacho ufi ina buy openi. Ufi ina buy. Pacho mate ya da se. Me pacho ye pe mai twato mienu. E mai twato mienu. Me ko bi na man kan bi de enye mai twato mienu. Ye nya ma eno ne pese etie. Oba ba ku jina ha se ana pamcho mo fa kasemu no mo oba no wa ha no. Pamcho mo fa kasemu no mo oba no mesrɛ mo a mo fa mo oba no na yentie no. Mesrɛ mo ani dem. Na ye wi a oba bi ama ne nsa so nti opani ye wi a oba bi ama ne nsa so ntinam de wi o. Madam Pacho yetie o. Pacho fra o sɛn.
Na why did you get that?
Me pacho ya feme fia pokuya me kasafi afima FM okofreidia ensem no yate ase ya kyerɛkyerɛ mu atie akyerɛ yatie fo bebre na ɛna no pɛ question obi bisa me na me nso me ba bebisa mo no sɛ me sani sika 1000 cedis ama Honorable Agyapong kroma na sɛ me pɛso wo yi ne 1000 cedis a sɛ me de 10 cedis ɛto so sɛ de bɛyɛ a bra Kwadwo betimi ayi 1000 ne pɛpɛpɛ me nso a me sani sika no yɛbɛte me 10 cedis ɛbɛyɛ 20 Ghana which is 2% and a telcos in the question say afi bia no ana bosumi miensa bosumi nsia bia no sika ahen and a 2% na telcos ne te no omodema aban ahe ne kom na bia nso adenti na aban no ente saa tax yi emfita kosi no because omo na nya sika ni bebre ebia me maame akosua foreign se bedi afia nsa ne mama ne 10 million enti sa afene na mimi nsani sika maame e beti saa tax na fiso a oman Ghana yen kwa yanim wo mpuntunwa mu ana medase.
Her question is about how much revenue does the state make from the telco charges, and why are we not going that route as against this one? Madam.
Wacha, Mr. Medi Florence Caesar, FIMA FM ha. Say before say you ko di bronya no, yet say honorable minister, finance minister. We modified E-levy no, and was I submit a parliament. In just a misani say, adia naba, ya bogu, ya ko modify, ya send ya ko parliament. Inti we ya ni ajadin treno, na san ko modification say ya ko parliament. And now say, ya chire mo chire Ghana for say mumpo ya bet inti muntiase.
That's it. So what is the impact of this town hall meeting on the processes in Parliament? Opening me the one baby, Yankomodian. But first saying,
the Premier Abraham Damtelenkon.
Abraham.
Yeah, I'm a public servant.
Okay, Abraham, you too.
Now, Mestre Namaka said, I thought there be a policy implementation communication, no? A how my Ghana. Ohe ilebia, a policy, and I said, BBIA, get the abuat memufua, oh my Ghana. Nansem se hun komodie no anko te se de na se ko enti mesre se yenuanom DCs ene MCs o ha no wo modern se sa ne me obefa na wa use don broadcast community information system wo empatem ewum no na won chekire nsem ne mu yie emfa ma omanfo se ne be ya omanfo no beti ase de tosum yenu a make one seven say a ya telcos no de tia no ya dia engofodi ho ya yi esan so hwa man bi so a mobile money e wo Kenya e free o send dia e free o ko receive so a e free and dia ha say dia na denti na telcos no e bu ye mfa so na ya say wo gisika efi dia o send ho na de okwa akoyi nso wogi sika fin ho ye besra ban se wom so waye bia se woni on kasa emna ba fom onkoso anu on kasa se ne be ya de ye tua e wo ye sende ne de wonso koyi a woge no obetimi amana ba fom na boa o ma ne nyina mpuntu medase
mo me se man nyina ye ho adwentra ya kire town hall meeting. Honorable Communications Minister Pacho na abedi kan ne wi Finance Minister be bon to fa man.
Pacho obi bisa se ye tua Levy no aka de telcos no eje na ani telcos no ye ne won edi komo enyansa wo so bebre ema omo a eje eto ewa adwuma na omo ye no omo apne so se ombete so kakra ama amanfo ho aharewo sana bed no enka adeswa no na enusmu aye ha kakra ama ye nyina tie ni omo edi nkomo ama omo ankasa ato omo anum tuo se oha nchichemu aduonu enum ombe yi afi charges na omo ema no na omo soso edi aboa ban na yadeswa no ankrankre nyanke betua no eso ati enti eho no nkyerɛkyerɛmu a ɛwɔ hɔ no ɛno no obi nso pɛso hu nya percentage 1.75 no ntiaseɛ ti sɛ o sende 300 Ghana ubetua 3 cedis 50 pesos. If it's a first 100 no e free enti 200 na da so no eno so to e na ubetua e 1.75 no enti 3 cedis 50 pesos in a beba beto so amawatua se wo sende 300 Ghana dakroa pato eno no e easier to understand ana telcos no Omo say yebeka ya me na me free board da wuro say yenye momo hu tax no ache kransa covid no eba da bia meka nanso meka mpanifo say da bi yenhwe na yemma sa ecosystem enyi ne ntumpon kakra ne yehu se bi esiko na ba ye ncheye enti mentumebo kakra covid yi ba ye hwe se de ye nyina ye botwi ye yusu ye na ase ye nyina ya tiase se eyade a aba betna eyade a ye nyina ye be use a ye de bebo ye mbra enti afe wanyi adru nimpani fie so a ye betumi edi sankita ho no afa ho enti eno so ka ho bi ena abasa service charges na telcos no agye no afi so a omutua ho omu deka omu faso omu aye ni nyina na omu atua eto ewo ho omu tete onho akana nti eho no me na me so me prese yemfa yema yani enko ho one yema me nya asan kyerkyeremu ne se ye de ka won faso a omu ye afimu ni nyina ho ne yakan bom na yatwa eto a ewo so omutua efa ho no ama wo na omo nso so atua saa to no nti uhwemu a na ultimately no omutua saa eto no enya no krese Kenya o yusu mobile money a untua eto bia omo pese de yenso so ye pese ye ma amanfo eyusu sika no ewo platform ne so nya se o kwa koyi sika no afiri afidie ni mu na wo de akodiga fediga ewo platform na so enti ye de momo ne sende wa men koko yisika no eno wo koyi sika na ombeto telcos ne beto nti emfaso abenya wo mu no na eso ahwere na se wo yusu wo platform ne so dia ekabia enihu Kenya nso saa o cash out a utua enti anya no krese charges bia ni ho emma mobile money users empo company bi wo memu ha ono so so uyusu momo na onye wo hu ska enti companies na esno mo nhihye ya omo aye ewo saa eyino ehu emsa communication ni the information minister obeyi eno ano amaye because na ni dress you no the responsibility na obeye enti I think I've answered.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's invite the minister responsible for finance. Honorable Finance Minister, your responses to the issues that have been raised. May I ask Reverend Dr. Kofi Akono to stand by for the closing prayer?
That's it. Thank you very much. Rebecca said, Honorable Esla, I responded to most of the questions by, I think of communication or information there. Kojobeye Amayan. Rebecca said, Ekua, and all can say, Aden Ayan taxi, your friends saying telecom companies, Ekua, near a day name, no say, companies there, you have a taxi one, and it's a continuing business. Now, I dare say a TSC, I'm kind from the beginning say, you move 2.4 million per any tier taxes. In the same way, no Rebecca say, oh, Angel be not 2.4 million for non-qua in tier. Now, if I can't do or my immune, as I see in United Trib, as I see in United Trib, in Tianfi, where Obia Betria Nidia, Sanya Baya or my Beko Yanim. Because for quite a do, Sanya Mekaya no. O share unemployment the same year, a BBI fata. Necessary in Yesikano, na yetimi train, I'm afraid, send a bear one so, one be jina had to send a jina hay, one year Jumapa 1 year, and as a one best start to Juma, then a bear stress on public sector employment no akofom. So we have general unemployment by 13%, and unemployment between the ages of 15 to 35, almost 19.7%. But one every universities near day our banijeta between the age of 15 and 24, unemployment is 32.8%. Say indignity I intimate use one energy near the one, and then I say as a chasso na yeko. Necessary nina yeso ejuma as a na yede Ghana ko fakwa as a yeko. Into yina as a rally behind our red, gold, green, make the black star shine, tackle our needs, not depend on the West. As Margaret Kyan also our free at the market, avoid the IMF. If so, Nimsenia IMF are same eba. Enti Sikai every 1.75 aya Kayano. Yabetwin ho. Senia beya definitely Parliament will dear. Ebe pass within the next few days. Senia beya yebetimi share ejumanase. Na yenso echo forward no ABA finance sponsor as I say about out more near no bon komo senia mo be hu. But sometimes you call Parliament no man no on person nipe hu ansa na wedu ho. Enti yebe balance na ya consult ye. But Mr. Mo, senia ya baha ya no ma bon komo yi. Mo nso mon kon kan kire mo nanfonom se jumapa ne pese ye de ye. You better report on a quarterly basis. Man who send you this, you used to musikano. Now on your mission, now you build this great and mighty nation. Thank you very much indeed.
Honorable Ken Oforiatta, Yedawase, Reverend Dr. Kofi Amfuakono, Pacho Brahmin Sabunkum Suase, Ubebompire Mines, Sia, Echebe, I'm afraid the Honorable Alexander Fenyo Malkin, Emma no Eddie Abain. Enim ada Ghana fo nyina amonya bre ahwe yen etie yen enne enwumre na wie enwumre wada mu nyina ase amaye na senior minister kan no enkomodie no se say a parliament ye di kan de asem na to parliament enim no oman no mu enkomodie ni senior ye fi ase no assemblymen for NCC for MP for ni DC for JD for driver for ni ade nyina ye nyina ye betie ho agum na yaya asempatre adwuma no mobiata so Honorable Alexander Fenyo Malkin pacho begina ban anim na anase begina omanfo nyina anim na dase e wa ban dim man.
So Kojo, thank you so much. Our dear audience, first, thank you for your patience. You have participated. This is the whole essence of governance. And I must say that kudos to the opposition NDC in Parliament. The opposition has brought governance to your doorstep. I am happy that we hear better late than never. So, our friends in the NDC, thank you. That's the beauty of democracy. But I want to assure you that, per the commitment from their side, I'm not sure we are going to exchange brows. And it's not good for our country. So that assurance is to you. Now, in this whole engagement, we've been able to establish and demonstrate that we mean well. Government has been able to tell you that from 2017 to date, it has kept faith. Two, through this engagement, we've been able to tell you that this levy is not being imposed merely for the sake of it. After all, we have introduced major social intervention policies that we did not have to introduce taxation to implement. So be assured that with all the concerns from the Auditor General, all the concerns that we have regarding how public funds are spent, the issues that have come up to ensure transparency, especially in the implementation of this e-levy, will be taken on board. Yet don't want to say, if we say, Ghana many nyina say nyame nhira koforodua oya yeba koforodua was say koforodua flowers much there hand me efe wampa nyame nhira wonder was say honem be obi biara abese ne be izi atedwumezi echi ye wenyi sum de kansa anka kebmem nke bi hu mentem wansa mba nje bia ye mba ha amema fam no mezi koforodua fo ka papa Sunday, make it in a parliament. Menu aye to. Mon desire mujine there, umbra parliament. Or from the neba, New York Kraba, new student. No church zemem. Name Musumetin zemebiase. Oye opinion or konahum Jim. Mark Isebe Yabwa. Into Koforodua it's a place of inspiration. Ne yenu abe fisu wa menumodo. A ori yejumapa. Ozabwa omani inti me gizi pa de se yesan bebi wa obagina tu nyame hye ho ejo foriata se oda ho na se mama me sister payin me auntie madam Esla also oda ho na se o man payin akufo-addo also nyame hye ho de ne papa mo ne bonimo ye fefe wa anyi da Ghana fo de yenkokan na kase wo yen kan nyame hye ho as a patch na what akụkọ nu kokoko a na ya aban nda se kase na ozema ho ya da wona sipi
bonjo me nyina yen sorry na yen jimpaibo
Mr. Mama Yamompa otumfo nyankopon a wo ye yen soraja ennedai wa yi wo hu ade a kire yen wo de wodom wa humobo ene wo nhira awowa yen ema town hall meeting a ya beye akoso fefe yɛn ne yɛn te nneɛma ase yɛate aseɛ mpaeɛ a yɛrebɔ ne sɛ ɔman biara nkyekyereyɛ ɔmanfoɔ na kyekyere ɛnyɛ obi na efiri baabi ɛbɛkyekyere ma yɛn enti boa yɛn ne yɛn nyinaa sɛ Ghana manfoɔ yɛmfa koma ɛnri nea ɛrekɔ so yɛ akyi na yɛn nyinaa obiara kyɛfa a ɛwɔ mu no wɔatumi ayɛ na boa ɛma mpuntu aba ɛde ama yɛn man yempanimfo ebaaye wo free ha kɔ yesraw sane ada wo soa won de won kɔde won ba no fa won kodura asomdwe mu enipa ebaaye nyina mobiara enya wanim anuonyam ɔdom ne asomdwe a ifre agye nyankopɔn ɔba ene wo kronkron enkamo na urade animute ene monkɔ na urade ema yɛn aban yi edisoade hu a ɔwɔ no emre mu na yɛn nyina yɛn ho ntɔ yɛn ye urade ne agye nkwa Yesu nti amen
osofo ye da se ye beto ye na ya asase ndi na mpanimfo no apie na ye nyina ye di ya wo ya no wa na ye na ya asase ni